Hello, friends. This is John Morgan, and coming to you today from Dallas, Texas. And I'm happy to be able to teach in this course that is being offered by Daystar University on transitioning to employment. And this particular lesson is about creating wealth. And so I want to thank Daystar University for offering this course. It's a pleasure to be working in partnership with them. I really appreciate that they come from a place of a Christian worldview and academic excellence with a mission of creating human flourishing in Kenya and around the world. So I think in doing that, that we help usher in the kingdom of God, which is some of the greatest work that we can be doing. So I appreciate them and I appreciate you. I also want to thank the Alumni Association for um, sponsoring this course and this lesson, and also for the leadership of Africa Transition Hub. The guys who founded African Transition Hub, Jeffrey Farizi and Moses Gichuho, are friends of mine. I've known them since 2020, and I appreciate the great work and the great leadership that they do through Africa Transition Hub. And so it's just a pleasure to be in partnership with all of you, and greetings to all of you students. My understanding is that most of you are juniors and seniors, and congratulations on making it this far. And I'm sure in your minds you're starting to be pretty concerned about, what are those steps ahead about making a living and being employable, or if you're going to take the entrepreneurial route, really what does it look like to be successful in making this transition? So today, I want to talk to you about how to create the wealth that you will need to fund your life and your purpose. And I divide that into two parts because, I mean, staying alive costs money. You got to eat, you got to have some place to live. There are expenses to just staying alive. And then on top of that, God has created all of us for a purpose. We have a purpose, or we could say we have a calling. God gives us special talents and gifts and special desires that He plants inside our hearts for all of the good that He has created us, that we are supposed to create in this world. So it's the good that we create in our relationships, the good that we create in our work, and all the things that we're doing. There's just a body of good that God has called us to create, and it usually takes money to stay alive and to be able to do a lot of this work in the world. So that's what we're talking about. How do you create that kind of wealth for your life and for your purpose? So I want to start off with a story that I like the story a lot because I think it embodies really the heart of what I want to challenge you with today. And so I go back much earlier in my life when I was a young man. Really, one of my earliest jobs is when I was a young man. I was the youth pastor of a church also in the state of Texas here in the U.S. And so it was the tradition of this church and their youth department, and the youth department was the ministry for the teenage kids. That's what the definition of that was. So part of their tradition is that every year they would take them on some kind of trip to some part of the country to do some fun things. And a lot of times it would include some kind of a Christian camp that they would go to. Um, so while I was the youth pastor this one summer, we had planned to take our kids from the state of Texas, and we were going to take them in a bus and drive them out to California on the west coast of the U.S. And we're going to take them to a Christian camp that would be a week long. And so they went to the Christian camp. A lot of great ministry was going on there, and there were a lot of youth groups from different churches around California and other places that had come to that camp for that week. So that was a great week. And then when that was finished, we took them to Disneyland. When you go to Southern California, going to Disneyland is one of the big things that everybody wants to do. So we took them to Disneyland. They had a great time there. And then we had planned an extra day that we were going to spend an afternoon and an evening at one of the California beaches. So our kids have all got up late in the morning because the day before they had been at Disneyland, and they were at Disneyland late at night, and they kind of slept in late in the morning. And then we had done some things with them that morning, and we were headed towards where the beaches were. And as we're going down the highway, we're getting kind of close to lunchtime, and the bus was hot, and the kids were all hot, and they were all hungry and getting kind of grouchy, and I knew we had to find a place where we could feed them lunch. So we're going down the highway, and I look at this sign that's coming up, and it's of a hamburger restaurant that's famous in California. It started in California. It's now spread all over the place. We have them here in Dallas now, but the name of the restaurant is In-N-Out Burger. And so I saw the In-N-Out Burger, thought, hey, let's try that, because they're known for being able to get good hamburgers out pretty quickly. So we pull into the parking lot, and their parking lot's pretty full. And I'm worried that, we're gonna bring in this bus with 40 teenagers in it to this restaurant that is already, pretty busy because of their lunch crowd. And so I thought I better go in first and talk to the manager. So I went in and to talk to the manager, and he came over to talk to me, and I explained to him the situation. We've got this bus out here full of 40 teenagers, hungry teenagers. I know you're busy now with your lunch crowd. Can you take care of us? Can you serve us? He goes, yeah, we can do it, but just give me a minute. And so he called all of his workers together in a huddle, and he said, look, we got this bus full of kids out there, and we need to feed them lunch, but we also got to take care of our normal lunch crowd. And so I want us to get organized, and let's really knock this out and do a great job of it. And so he began to give different assignments, and he told one of them, "You open up another cash register." And this is where the kids off this bus, they're all going to order off as your line. And then he told somebody else, hey, load up the grill with as many hamburgers as you can get on that grill. Start cooking them now. And then he told another one, start loading up the French fry, the fryer with as many French fries as you can, because there's a bunch coming. Then he told somebody else, start putting ice in cups, and get ready to start serving getting drinks with the most popular drinks. Just go ahead and start pouring them up, because we know they're going to get sold. Excuse me. And so he's getting it all organized. And then he shouts out to all of his regular customers, because, hey, folks, we got a bus full of kids that we're getting ready to feed. I want to ask all of you to stay in this line that you're in now. We're going to get you your food first, but these kids are going to come over here and order on this line. We're going to get everybody taken care of, all right? And then he told his team, hey, everybody, put your hands here in the middle. And they all put their hands in the middle. And he goes, okay, on three, it's going to be go team. And he goes, 1, 2, 3. And they all go, go team. And they all run off to their different parts of the counter and the cooking station and the cash register. And man, I went out to the bus. I told, hey, man, this is the line you're going to go to, and be respectful, but let's go in and they're going to take care of it. So our kids were excited. They all got off the bus. And now I'm kind of watching this from the background over, just watching how this whole thing goes, because probably like you, I have been in a lot of places in my life where you just felt like, man, we're just not getting good customer service, and everybody's slow, and nobody really cares about, the quality or how things are going here. And to see a guy is just really, man, this guy is really trying to create a great experience for us. He's trying to solve a problem for us. He's trying to create what we call creating value. It's rare. It's rare when you see somebody that really, I mean, they just tackle the problem and solve it well. So it was just fun watching it, and watching how he got all his team going, and they were motivated and they were excited, and man, they're cranking it out. They're cranking out the burgers, they're cranking out the French fries, they're cranking out the drinks, and it didn't take that long. And they got their regular customers served just fine. They got us taken care of in great time. I mean, the guy did such a great job. I mean, I was inspired. I left feeling like, man, I'd like to work for that guy, or I left feeling like, man, I want to be that guy. And I could tell, I don't know where this guy is going to go in his life. Right now he's managing a fast food, excuse me, hamburger restaurant. But I can tell this guy's going places. Who knows? Maybe someday he's going to own one of these restaurants, or maybe he'll own several of these restaurants, or maybe he'll work in the corporate office that runs these restaurants, or maybe he's going to shift over to another industry. But man, this guy is going places because he knows the secret. And it's the secret of a lot of things. It's the secret of success, but it's really the secret to creating wealth. So let me start kind of breaking this down with you, and let's start kind of taking apart this. What does it mean, and how is this done? So there are three wealth engines, and I use the language of an engine because an engine cranks out power. So where there are certain things that crank out money, that crank out wealth. And there's three major engines that do this, and you need to know what they are. So I don't have time to go into detail with you on all three of them. And I'm going to go in a little bit on the first one because it's the most important one. But let me give you a quick overview of the three. So we name each one of them with one word. And the three wealth engines are these: create, own, and grow. Create, own, and grow. And they each stand for an action, human action. So it takes human action to create wealth. So here's the three actions. Number one, create the best value you can. Number two, own the best property you can. And I mean, own property, own real estate, own land and houses or land and buildings, own property with a legal title or a legal deed. You have legal proof that you own it. Some people, they use land. You say, hey, do you have land? They'll say, yeah, I have land, but they can't produce the legal documents that proves that they own it. And that does not create wealth. You have to own it legally. So create the best value that you can, own the best property that you can, and number three, grow the best business that you can. So hopefully in the future, we'll be able to teach you more of all three of these. But that's an overview of the three. So your ability to create wealth over the rest of your life will be determined on how much value you can create, what property you can own, and what business you can grow or businesses you can grow. You don't have to do all three of those, but you need to try at least to do two. And if you can, you should do all three. And everybody has to do number one if you're going to even get close to having enough for your life. So the future of Kenya in terms of its economic future, of will it be more wealthy? Will it stay the same? Will it stagnate? Will it become a lot more wealthy? Is going to be completely dependent upon the people of Kenya. If the people of Kenya create a lot of great value, if it becomes very common for people to own property in Kenya, and if it becomes very common that people are growing businesses in Kenya, then the wealth of Kenya is going to grow at a high rate. If that gets suppressed and they don't do those three things, it's not going to grow at a high rate. In short, that's how you create an economic revolution in a country. You make the conditions so that those things are promoted. People understand to do them. They understand how to do them. And the conditions are put in place that it makes it more easy for them to be able to do those kinds of actions. And that's going to determine your destiny. That's going to determine your destiny in terms of how much money you create, how much wealth you are able to create. Okay, so let's go dive into a little bit on the first wealth engine, which is create. So each of the wealth engines, the reason why they are true, and they have always been true. They have been true across history. You can go back in time, and they're true across cultures. It doesn't matter what culture you're in. It doesn't matter where you are in history. These three wealth engines are the core powers of creating wealth because they are based in principles. And so when we say a principle, what we mean is we mean that a principle is a truth of cause and effect that is always true. It is a principle of cause and effect that is always true. So, an example of a principle, there's like the physical principle of gravity. And so, if you climb up a tall building, um, you know what? Don't jump off because there's a principle that is going to work against you, and it's the principle of gravity. And so don't jump off because you are going to fall. Now, if our world were to change in some way, where there was no more gravity anymore, can you imagine that? Everything's just floating around. I mean, that just wouldn't even work, right? But in the world we live in, where there's gravity, every time you jump off or every time you drop something off a building, it is going down. And so that is driven by a physical principle. So these are economic principles. And so on this one, I want to drill in a little bit to talk to you about the principle because I want to convince you of it. I want you to understand you can fight this all you want. You can fight these principles all you want. And if you fight them, guess what? You're not going to create the wealth you need. But if you understand them and you really buy into it, there's no way you're going to change it. So you better buy into it. You better get with the program and you better line up your life to make this stuff happen. Okay. So the principle on the first one of creating value, the principle is this, that value is created. Where does value come from? And when I say the word value, I mean that in a very broad economic sense. I mean, where does money come from? And I don't just mean like the paper money of Kenya shillings or the coins of Kenya shillings or American dollars. I mean the value in the money. Because you could take a piece of paper and you could just draw up like the picture of a Kenya of like 100 Kenya shillings, and then you can hand it to somebody. They're going, I'm not gonna treat that like it's money because there's no value in it. So how does the value get behind that money? Where does the value come from? And the answer is it is created. And here's how it is created. It is created by the human action of creating value, of creating, and here's the kind of value you create a product or a service or a solution that is valuable either to you for your use because you can use it for your life, or that other people value it. So they're going to pay you for that value that you're creating. When you're trying to get employed by an organization or a business, what you're trying to do is saying, look, I will create value for you. And what you're going to give me is you're going to pay me. You're going to give me my pay. You're going to give me my salary or my hourly pay or whatever the compensation is. I'm trading you the value I'm going to create in your organization for the pay that you are going to pay me. I will create products in your organization, or I will create services in your organization, or I will solve problems in your organization. It's like, I don't know who owned that In-N-Out Burger restaurant, but when we drove up, their lunch problem became a bigger problem. And that manager stepped up and said, guess what? I'm going to solve that problem. And he did. And guess what? That's why he's the manager. And I promise you, that guy didn't stay in that position long because people that are like that, they move up. When people realize you are a value creator, you move up because they want to put you in a higher role because they know you're going to create higher value in that role that you're going to go to. So, value, money, wealth is or are created. They are created by the human action. So they are not created by just the government saying, "Oh, this is valuable, that's not valuable." They can do that for a while and they can trick people for a while, but eventually the truth comes out and true value, shows itself. It's not created by the government printing money. When the government prints money, that is not the creation of value. The creation of value is when people in Kenya create products and services and solutions. And then the government of Kenya is saying the currency that we use so that you can exchange that back and forth. When you go create a product and you're going to sell it to somebody, you can use a Kenya shilling for that. But the Kenya shilling in itself does not have value in it. In other words, if it did have value in itself, then all any nation would have to do would be to get a bunch of printing presses and just constantly crank out as much money as they possibly could. But we know that doesn't work because many countries have tried it. What it does is it ruins the currency. It just puts it's like taking a cup of tea and saying, okay, I brewed this cup of tea, and somebody says, you know how to get more tea? Well, pour that tea into a bigger cup, and now we're just going to add more water, and then let's pour it in another cup, and let's just add more water. Are you actually creating more tea? No, you're not. You're just watering down the tea you've got. This is what happens when the government creates or prints more money than the products and the services and the solutions that the people are creating. So the proper balance is the government stays up with the productivity of the people that is putting enough currency out there. You can use this currency to exchange it back and forth as you were paying each other for this value that you were creating. So it's not created by printing money. It's not by the government just declaring, oh, that we're now rich, you can't do it. It's not created by distributing money. In other words, you cannot go to somebody who's got more money and say, since they have more than they need, let's take some of their money away from them and let's give it over here to these people that don't have enough. So by doing that, we just created wealth. You didn't create wealth. The distribution of money doesn't create more. You still have the same amount that there was. What we are interested in is, look, where does it come from? Where is it created? Because you don't want to just distribute from others to you. You want to create it, actually create it, because that's where money is born. That's where money is born in the economy. And so you want to go to the birthplace. You want to go to the creation point because God created you to be a creator. So not only is this economically true, but this is also biblically true. It is also theologically true. So I'm really glad to be teaching this at Daystar University that affirms both biblical truth and economic truth. But in the Bible, in Genesis chapter number 1 and verse number 28, after it says that God created us in his image, it said, then he blessed the first human beings, which is a blessing for the whole human race. He blessed them and he said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, and take dominion of it. 5 verbs, 5 verbs. And so some people look at that and say, well, that just means have more babies because God loves human beings. They're created in his image. So we ought to have more human beings to fill the earth. Well, we are to be creating human beings because God loves them. He wants to populate his kingdom with them. But there's more to it than that. It didn't take 5 verbs to say have babies. When you look at all those 5 verbs and you really study the meaning of the words, what it is saying is God is saying, I created you in my image. Look, I created the universe. I created the earth. I created you with high intelligence, with creative capacity. And I'm putting you in this environment with all these resources and other people created in my image. So use these resources, use other people, and I mean in a good sense, you cooperate with them, but take advantage of all of this and now go create more value, make the world a better place. Go create great societies, go create great art, go create great businesses, go create great technology, go create great medicine, go create great education, go create great religious organizations, all the things that cause human flourishing and build the kingdom of God on earth and are blessing to everybody. Go create that value. And in creating that value, you're going to flourish. It is an economic concept. So this is where it comes from. Wealth is created. Okay, so then what the action comes to, when we start talking about you, what does this mean to me personally? And how do I get the money and the wealth that I'm going to need from my life and my purpose? The way we say it is this: create the best value you can. And I put the you can on the end of it because different people have different capabilities in different areas of life. So God gives different people different gifts and talents and the things that they are and that they are not interested in. And God allows that to be this engine inside of you, and he wants to release it. It is part of God's image in you. Look, God is the creator who created all of the canvas of the universe and the world and all of its resources and all the people in the world and all the opportunities in the world, all the problems in the world, which also are the opportunities because they're just waiting to be solved. Okay. So God creates all this, and then he creates us with part of his character in us, which is we are creators too. He's a creator. He created us in his image that we are creators. And so now he's given us talent and gifts and desire. And he's saying, look, go make the world a better place. Find your place. Find your place in the world. That man, this is what turns you on. This is what really lights your spirit up. This is that area of interest. Maybe you wonder, you can wonder, I don't know why other people are not as interested in this as I am, but I love this. This is what I want to do. Find that place and really apply yourself to create the best value that you can. So there's a principle also that I want you to understand, and that is this: the income you make will be driven by the value you create. The income you make will be driven by the value you create. So there's a lot of people that they complain because they'll do a job that doesn't pay very much. And they'll be upset at their employer, they'll be upset at the government, they'll be upset at society, or they'll even be upset at God because they'll say, well, that's not a living wage. I should be able to do this job that's not a very valuable job. I should be able to do this job and be able to make a living off of that. That's not how it works. How it works is the income you make is driven by the value that you create. So if you want to make more income, you must create more value. You must either create more products or better products. You must create more solutions or better solutions. You must create more services or better services. And so we are all in this quest that says, how do I match my God-given gifts and talents and desires with the problems that are out here in this world to create these products, to create these services, to create these solutions that I'm going to meet that need, and it's going to be valuable. It'll help me make my living, and people will give me money. They'll either hire me in their company to do this, or in their organization to do this, or I'm going to go out and do it on my own as an entrepreneur, and people will pay me to do these things for them. That's the quest. That is a quest that we are all in. So what I want to transition to is talking about 3 actions to create the best value that you can. So I've written a book that is going to be released at the end of this year or in January of next year. So we're looking at December or January coming up. It's going to be released. It's called The Spirit of Creation. And it covers these 3 wealth engines. It covers some other things about solving poverty in nations and in different situations. But it really goes into detail on create, own, and grow. And in that, I give you 10 ways to create the best value that you can, 10 ways to own the best property you can, and 10 ways to grow the best business that you can. And we're going to have a way that we can make the book available to you in electronic form. So it'll be an ebook, a PDF file that you'll be able to get access to. So it's not quite ready, but we're lining that up with Africa Transition Hub, and they'll be able to give you the link that you'll be able to get into that. So in that book, we're going to have 10 ways to create the best value that you can. In this lesson, I want to talk to you about 3 ways to create the best value that you can. All right, my throat's really dry today. Let me take another little drink of water here. And we'll keep on rolling. All right. So 3 actions to create the best value that you can. And action number 1 is this. Think of yourself as a value creator. And you may think, well, I guess I do kind of think of myself of that way. But look, it is so common that many people do not think of themselves that way. And so they're not constantly thinking about, in this situation, how do I create the value that I could create, that I want to create, that I want to make the money from creating value in that situation. So I would say that everywhere I go, whether it's the US or somewhere in Africa or Asia or Latin America, I would say that the average person who goes to work does not go to work thinking, how do I create the best value that I can today? They usually go and just say, oh, what am I supposed to do? Or what do I have to do? And I'll just kind of do what I have to do, or I'll just kind of do what I'm supposed to do. In other words, they're not really thinking in terms of what's the best value I can create. I'm really kind of looking at it. I'm owning the problem. I'm thinking of it in terms of my boss. I'm thinking of it in terms of the company that I'm working for or the organization that I'm working for, or I'm thinking of it in terms of my neighborhood and community. If I'm trying to be an entrepreneur and sell them a product or a service, what is it that they need that I can provide, and how well can I provide it? Most people do not get up and go to work thinking like that. Most people do not think in terms of a value creator. A lot of people go in and they think in terms of I'm a time spender. And so one of the craziest concepts that I think has ever happened is that in a lot of employment jobs around the world, people are paid for their time. And so they will pay you by the hour, or they will pay you by the day if you work 8 hours a day, or they will pay you by the week if you work like 40 hours, and they're keeping track of, did you get your 8 hours in today? Or if you missed a day, you're not going to get paid for the hours of that day, but you're getting paid for your time. Now think about that for a minute. I mean, if you own a business and somebody comes to you and at the end of a week they say, I was here for 40 hours, so since I was here for 40 hours you owe me a certain amount of pay. And you're thinking, well, you were here for 40 hours but you didn't do anything, so really your time is not important to me. It has no value for me, it has no value for my business. You didn't do anything for us. So why do we pay people for their time? It's because the people themselves value their time. I value my time, you value your time. But guess what? Nobody else does. They don't value our time. And it doesn't really make sense to pay people for their time, because if people are being paid for their time, there is a conflict of interest for that person, because that person goes to work thinking, all I got to do is be here 8 hours today and look like I'm doing something. And if I can pull that off for a week, and if I can pull that off for a year, and if I can pull that off for the next 30 years of my life and maybe retire, then guess what? They paid me for my time. And so do not think of yourself as a time spender. In fact, if you think of yourself as a time spender, your days are going to go really slow. Your work is going to feel like drudgery. You're going to be like, man, when will this day be over? Or when will this week be over? Or, oh man, you're killing me. I cannot wait till I get to the weekend, or I can't wait till I get to retirement. I mean, that is no way to live. So don't think of yourself as a time spender. Don't think of yourself as a title holder. You know, if you get a job, the job says that you are the supervisor of something, that you're gonna supervise this work. Well, are you really supervising? Are you giving good leadership to the people there? Are you giving them good direction when they can't solve a problem? Do you help them solve them? Are you staying on top of laying out the work for them so they understand what really has to happen? Are you giving good leadership, or are you just hanging out because on your name tag it says, here I am and I'm the supervisor. And since I'm the supervisor, you automatically be giving me money because I now have a title. Or sometimes, hey, I have a desk. And because I have a desk, here I am, I'm sitting at my desk. And maybe you've been messing around on your phone and looking at social media or whatever, but maybe your supervisor, your manager comes walking through, you're like, oh, I better act like I'm doing something, so I get on my computer and I pull up some files that look like I'm doing something. So what is that? I'm a space filler, I'm a desk sitter, I'm a time spender. Now, let me tell you something that I know you know this, and I'm not saying this to put you down. I'm saying this to encourage you. Look, I value education. Okay. So I got a bachelor's degree, I got a master's degree, and I got a PhD. So I value education. But worldwide, there is this false idea that if you go to college and you get a degree, that your degree becomes this magic ticket, this magical ticket, and you'll never have to put out any effort again, and you'll be able to walk in to a job interview or into a company, and you show them your diploma, and they're like, "Whoa, the Messiah has come in. Yes, come, and we will give you a big title, and we will give you a beautiful office with a beautiful desk and a beautiful computer, and so you are now here, and you don't have to worry about money for the rest of your life." And this is kind of the pipe dream that so many have thought of when they go to get their college education. So look, again, I'm not against college education, not at all. But that is only one part of the equation. That's the part of the equation that says now, because I have the knowledge and the skills that I have acquired in this specialty, when I'm going to apply for a job now, I can confidently say, this is the value I can create for you. And then when I get in the job, I go in as a value creator. And I am pleasantly surprising them at all the value that I am bringing to their organization. They're going to get to a point to feel like we cannot help but promote this person up because of all they're just going to create better and better as high as we can put them in our organization. So the education is good, but it is not the golden ticket. It gets your foot in the door to prove that you are a value creator, and then you can go from there. So a number of years ago, I was in the Philippines, and I was in a city called Subic Bay. And in Subic Bay, the United States used to have a naval base there at Subic Bay in the Philippines, and a lot of the economy was based on it. And so we were traveling through for the day through Subic Bay, and we stopped at a mall that had a food court and where we could go rest a little bit, get something to eat. Then we are going to get back on our bus and go to where our destination was. So they told us the time we were supposed to be back and get on the bus to continue the trip. So I got off and I toured with a couple of guys around the mall a little bit. And then when I went to the food court, I saw a place that looked good to me. And it was called Army, and it had like the logo of the United States Army hamburger. And so when you go inside, it's like it's all decorated in like U.S. Army stuff. And but it's again, it's a hamburger restaurant, and it was starting to load up with people for the lunch hour. And so I got in line, and I was probably be behind about 5 or 6 people, and I thought, no, this is not going to take long for this line to get through, and then I can get my order in, and I'll be able to get my hamburger in time to go get on the bus and continue our trip. So I'm standing in line, and I'm realizing, man, this line is not moving. This line is really taking a long time. And I began watching the people up behind the counter, and I thought, these guys look like zombies. They're all walking around at like half speed. They're all walking around like they're half asleep. Nobody is really watching what is going on, and everybody is just as slow as you can imagine. And nothing has been preset out to make this process go faster. And you compare that to my earlier story where there was a guy and a crew that, man, they were seeing the problem and they were knocking it out. And here you got these people that are just walking around like zombies and taking forever. And by the time I get up to order, I'm looking at my watch. I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm going to get my hamburger in time that I can eat and still make it to the bus. And I barely made it. I did get it. I did it, and I barely made it to the bus. But I mean, and I'm not picking on the Philippines, but almost all of us have been in places where that's the people were like that. They just they're not thinking of themselves as value creators. They're just kind of thinking about, okay, somebody told me to do this, and they're almost like robots. Okay, I'm supposed to do this, and then I'm supposed to do this, and then I'm supposed to do this, and I'm just going to kind of do it. I'm just going to kind of sleepwalk through these things that I'm supposed to do, and I'm not really stopping and raising my head, because if I stopped and I raised my head, I would realize, hey, we got a long line here. Hey, these people are waiting a long time to get their food. It shouldn't take this long. We need to get ourselves organized. We need to move faster. We need to divide up the jobs better. We need to make the system work quicker because I'm thinking of myself as a value creator. I'm not just filling a position and going through the paces. Okay. So that's number one. Think of yourself as a value creator. Here's number two. Change your thinking from pizza envy to pizza ambition. And you're thinking, what? What are you talking about? Pizza envy to pizza ambition. So when I was a kid, pizza was one of my favorite foods. And then when I became a teenager, teenage boys, I think some teenage girls are like this too, but man, teenage boys, it's like they're hungry constantly. And I love pizza. And anytime I was anywhere where we were eating pizza, whenever the pizza would come and be put out on the table or out on the countertop, and they'd open up the pizza box, I would do a mental calculation. I would look at how much pizza do we have? How many slices, is it a small pizza? Is it a medium pizza? Is it a large pizza? How many slices of pizza are there? And then I would mentally count everybody in the room, and I would be counting how many girls, how many boys, because usually the boys are going to eat more. And I would do a mental calculation of how many pieces of pizza am I going to get? And I bet you've done that in some kind of situation. Maybe it wasn't pizza, maybe it was chicken, maybe it was something else. But you were doing the calculation. You saw what was there, and you're thinking, how much am I going to get? Am I going to be able to get full? So and because man, I could just eat a ton of pizza. And I was like, man, if it was a few people, I'd be like, yes, I'm going to get more pizza. If it was a lot of pizza or a lot of guys, I'd be like, oh my, I don't know if I'm going to get enough pizza or not. So what that becomes is pizza envy. I start envying you for your pizza because there's only that much. There's only so many slices. And then when it's gone, and you're going to get your piece. And any piece you get is one less piece that I get. And if you decide not to eat an extra piece, guess what? That's a piece that maybe I could eat. So that is pizza envy. So am I really talking about pizza? No, I'm not talking about pizza. I'm just using this as a metaphor. I'm just using this as a picture for the broader ideas of how people think economically. And so if you have pizza envy, here's what that means. That means when you think of the economy, when you think of all the money that's out there, all the wealth, all the possessions that people have, okay, all the value that's already out there. If you have pizza envy, what that means is you think the reason I don't have what I want is because I see what you have and you have it. I don't have it. And the reason I don't have it is because you have it. And so the rich, I blame the rich the most because they've got huge pieces of pizza over there, which may mean they have big houses or cars or they own businesses or all the things they have, their big vacations that they take. Like, because you are taking that money out of the pizza, out of the pizza, the economy pizza, then I don't get that because you got it, because you have it. And what that means is because that's all there is. That's all there is, and that's all there's going to be. The only way I get it is somehow I get it from you, or I take a piece that maybe you would have taken. So I'm in battle, I'm in competition against you. Who's going to go into the economy and take these pieces of pizza? That is not how it works. That is not how the economy works. There's a technical name for this, and it's called the zero-sum fallacy. So when a pizza gets put in front of you, if there's a big pizza and there's 5 people that sit down to eat, that's all the pizza there is. That is a zero-sum game, meaning you're not going to add any more. It's a zero sum. There's not going to be any more. It's just there is as many slices as there is. And every time somebody takes a piece, that's one less you can get. That is a zero-sum game. Zero-sum game. But the economy is not. And here's why. It goes back to the principle of create, because value is created. Value is created. The pizza of the economy is just not sitting there with this many slices and this big a pizza. Every day, the pizza grows. Every day, more pizza is created. Every week, every month, every year, more pizza is created. In other words, more money is created, and it is created by people who create products and services and solutions every time they do. And then the government prints money that comes in behind that, so that there's enough money in the economy that people can trade it back and forth as they are trading for these goods and services. So we have to switch from pizza envy to pizza ambition. So look, envy is a sin. There is righteous ambition that is good. It is right. It is righteous. So the 10th commandment of the 10 commandments says you are not to covet your neighbor's possessions, because coveting is the sin of envy, where deep down in you're driven by such a desire for what somebody else has that you envy them for them. You feel resentment towards them that they have it and you don't. You're thinking, well, you're not better than me. Why do you have it and I don't have it? I deserve it. I'm entitled to it. I should get that and not you. It is not about that at all. You don't have to worry about that at all. You can look at somebody else that has something nice. Maybe they have a nice house, a nice apartment, a nice car, a nice motorcycle, a nice clothes, whatever they have. Whenever you see that, you have to realize you didn't take that away from me. It's not like you took away my piece of pizza. Because the question is, where is your piece of pizza? Your piece of pizza is not the pizza sitting out there that everybody already has. Your piece of pizza is the piece you're going to create. You're going to create it. You are a creator of money. You are a creator of value. You genuinely are. It actually creates new money in the economy. You are growing what's called the gross domestic product of your country, which means the overall wealth and the productivity of your country is growing year by year by year, but you have a personal domestic product, which is what pizza am I creating? So instead of having your eyes and your heart on the possessions of others, you don't want to do that, because that will tear you up. In fact, that sin of envy and covetousness will cause the worst sins in your life, and it will cause the worst offenses that other people will do against you in your life. So, I mean, this is a dark, dark place where Satan wants to take you, where you are just eaten up with envy over what other people have and what they do and what their life is. You've got to get your eyes off of it. You've got to switch your thinking from pizza envy to pizza ambition. So what do I mean by pizza ambition? What I mean by pizza ambition is that you were thinking, I have a picture in my mind of the value that I want to create. And I don't just mean the money. And I don't just mean, oh, I want to drive a car like this, or oh, I want to have an apartment like this, or I want to have a house like this. I'm not talking about that. Those are the results of your ambition. What are the good things in the world that you want to create? And you may say, you know what, I think I'd like to go do research for a medical organization, and I'd like to help do the research that comes up with medicines that solve some diseases. I like to cure some. I like to cure some diseases, or I really care about people who struggle with certain needs that they have, and I'd like to work for a company that takes care of them and helps provide that kind of care. Or hey, I want to be a great teacher. Or I'd love to be a great teacher and a great coach of some sport. Or I would like to work in a company that builds a certain kind of technology. I love this kind of technology. That's the kind of stuff that I want to create. What is the ambition? What is that piece of pizza that you want to create? That's ambition. And that kind of ambition is righteous. Let that be your motivator. And then actually, before I move off of that one, let me tell you another story. So several years ago, I met a lady who's become a friend of mine in Kenya, and her name is Banice Mburu. And Banice Mburu is the founder of the Jade Collection clothing stores. And so I got to spend a day with her, and she took me around to several of her stores, and to the facility, their warehouse facility where they make clothes and they store some of their products. And she told me her story about when she was growing up, her parents had their own business. They owned several stores that sold shoes, and Bonnice was always, she always loved fashion. She always loved beautiful clothes. And even as a girl, she loved to look at magazines of women dressed in beautiful clothes, and she loved fashion. And so I don't know if she would put it in these terms, but as a kid, she started having this ambition that that's the world she wanted to work in, and that's the kind of things that she wanted to create. And she said, as a girl, my family was very education oriented. They were very serious minded people, and they kind of made light of my interest in fashion. They thought that I was not a serious person, and it made me feel like maybe I was foolish that I loved it so much, but I couldn't get away from it. It's what I love. And so she said one time I was on a trip in another African country, and when I was in that country, I saw these beautiful women's scarves that were there, and I thought, why don't they have these in Kenya? So I bought as many of them as I could. And when I got back to Kenya, I started going downtown, and I started going from office to office. And I would go to the receptionist at the front desk of these offices, and I would begin selling these scarves to them. And I created a plan where if they couldn't pay for it outright, they could pay a little bit each week when I went. And I kept a record of what they were paying. It was a layaway program. And then when they had it paid enough, they would buy their scarf. And then from there, I started opening up a booth under a tent cover out on the street, selling next to street vendors. And so I had my area, and I had my little booth. So I started getting more scarves. I would sell them there. And then I opened up my first little store that was an actual storefront store. And now I started adding other things. I had dresses, and I had shoes, and I had scarves. And she just kept going and going and going. What is that? That's ambition. She did not have pizza envy. She had pizza ambition. Fashion was her pizza. She does well financially, of course, as you can imagine. She does well financially, but her ambition was not to be wealthy. Her ambition was to create value in the fashion things that she really loves. So, the third way to create the best value you can is to raise your level of responsibility. And so, when we talk about that, let me just kind of break into the word responsibility a little bit. The word responsibility means I am able to respond. I can respond back to life. I can act on life. I'm not a victim. I don't just have to take what life throws at me. I don't just have to sit here when problems of life happen. I can act on those problems, and I can help create solutions. So when you are thinking of your work and when you are doing your work, you go in with a spirit of responsibility that, look, problems are going to come up every day, and I can act. I can act. I can be responsible to act. I can have agency. I can change my life. I can change the situation, and I can change this problem by doing work that's going to apply to it. So I mentioned earlier that I met Jeffrey and Moses, the guys who started Africa Transition Hub. I met them in the year 2020, and they had attended a conference where I was doing some of this training, and it really inspired them because at the time they were both they both had college educations, but they were both unemployed, and they were struggling, and they began hearing what we were teaching, and they came away from it thinking, man, we love this content, but not only this content, there's a bunch of other great truth and content that, man, this is our stuff. We want to help people make the transition, especially young people that are coming out of college. We want to help them make the transition into employment or into entrepreneurship where they can create the best value that they can, and they can own the best property that they can, and they can grow the best businesses that they can. And so they started Africa Transition Hub, and they become content experts in this field now. And they have taught in so many different environments. They've had leadership in this course. They're writing a book on it. I mean, these guys, this is their thing. This is their thing. This is their ambition, and they are creating great value in it. So, what I'm saying is take responsibility and say, look, we're going to solve a bigger problem. I'm not just trying to solve a bigger problem. Hey, I need a job. That is a problem. But man, what's the bigger problem I'm trying to solve? And so Jeffrey and Moses say, hey, what's the bigger problem? Is that all across Kenya and all across Africa, there's a crisis going on. of all these people that are in college or early out of college, and there's not enough jobs, or they're not competitive enough for the jobs that should be there. And we need to help them get up to speed to be able to compete in those environments, or to create the jobs that will really fulfill their ambition. So I want to close with one more story, and I want to tell you about a man named John Bosco. John Bosco lives is from Awendo, Kenya, in Western Kenya. And when John was a teenager, when he was about, I think it was when he was 14 years old, his parents died, and that left him with his three siblings. And they went from living in a home that their father and mother were helping to provide from them, that they went to living on the streets. Occasionally they would live in home, but a lot of times they're just living out on the streets. And John was working, trying to keep his siblings fed. And so sometimes he would work as a domestic worker. Sometimes he would work as a farm worker. And then he went one August. He went to a conference in a window that is taught by a man who's one of our partners in the work that we do, and that man's name is George Kienga. And so George, the story of George's life is just revolutionary, everything that he's created, because he's applied these three principles. But now George teaches it in a conference directed mainly towards young people out in that part of the country. So John Bosco went and he heard about these principles of create, own, grow. And he became obsessed with, how can I create the best value that I can? And what he began doing is he began collecting old containers. Sometimes they were old discarded, excuse me, plastic containers. Sometimes they were like plastic bags. Sometimes they're like plastic jugs where he would cut them and kind of open them up. And he would plant seedling trees. He would go out where he could collect either cuttings from trees or seeds from trees, and he would start these seedling trees, and he began selling seedling trees on the streets. Well, his business began to grow, and then it grew some more, and then he realized he needed some help, and so he would go to a nearby a school, a grade school or a primary school, and he would hire several kids if they would come and help him do some of the planting work and some of the care work of their planting beds where they were growing these seedling trees. And he would hire others that would go out on the streets and they would sell these seedling trees. And then he really struck it good, because the county government of Migori County came to him and said, "Hey, we want to begin buying some of these seedling trees for you for our environmental program." And so now his business has exploded quickly, and he ended up hiring 20 students from the local school who are helping him. Um, he got to where he was selling 200 seedling trees a day. He was able to buy three different properties. On one of his properties, he built a home for his siblings and himself. He put his siblings through school, and he finished his own education through secondary school, and he's continued to grow his business. And he is now like, he's the king of the seedling trees in Migori County. It all came from him digging back into, what do I like? What do I have a talent to do? How can I create the best value that I can? And getting out there and trying it and doing it and saying, look, I can't just sit around with pizza envy. Man, I've got to have pizza ambition. I've got to raise my level of responsibility and say, what's the bigger problem? The bigger problem is not that I just need a job, but and that I need money. But the bigger problem is that people need trees. People need to plant good trees around their properties. They need to be able to plant them around their farms, or they need to be able to plant them around their homes or their businesses. And I know how to do that. I learned how to do that from the days that I was doing agricultural work for others. Look, I can do it for me. I don't have to do it for others. I can do it for me, because I know how this is done. I know how to tend to this. I like it. I know how to care for it. And we're going to build this thing up. So he took that next level of responsibility. So let's wrap it up. Wealth is created by these three wealth engines of create the best value you can, own the best property you can, grow the best business that you can. Three ways to create the best value that you can are think of yourself as a value creator, change your thinking from pizza envy to pizza ambition, and raise your level of responsibility. So there's a blessing that we began saying to our kids. We have 5 kids and they're all grown adults now, but when they were kids and they would be leaving our house to go off to school or to their jobs, or when they would leave to go off to college, as they were going out the door, a blessing that we would say to them is go forth and conquer. And by that, what we were saying was, God bless you, because God has created you in his image. He's created you to go fill the earth and subdue it and to take dominion of it. He's created you to create a better world, to go make great products, great services, and great solutions. And our short way of saying that is go forth and conquer. So appreciate the opportunity to be with you in this lesson. And I want to leave you with this blessing. Go forth and conquer.